I am questioning whether or not Mike Johnson is up to the task. And I'm not questioning it because I'm mad at the guy. It is clear that the left wants to make the new speaker the boogeyman of boogeymen. And, oh, it's terrible. And, oh, it's horrible. And Christian fundamentalists, all of a sudden, they have an issue over there on the left with religious fundamentalism, unless, of course, if you're Islamo-fascists, in which case, you know what, it's fine. As a matter of fact, we should take a humanitarian pause. That was Joe Biden. Humanitarian pause, which is, of course, meaning support for Hamas, because it gives Hamas a chance to revamp and re-get back in the game. People who support the idea of a pause support Hamas. I say it and I mean it. Guys, welcome to the show, presented by Americans for Prosperity, americansforprosperity.org, economic liberty and free speech. That's what it's all about. Representative Cammack scheduled to join us in just a few minutes, but I'm very focused on this idea whether or not Mike Johnson is up to the task. And really, it's a greater conversation. It's about whether or not Republicans are up to the task. Tony Katz, it's good to be with you. Find everything I do over at TonyKatz.com. Be a part of it. Be a part of what we're growing over there, TonyKatz.com. Being up to the task is a multi-part conversation. We have to ask ourselves whether or not he can do the basic things that a speaker needs to do, like fundraising. And for the people who say that doesn't matter, it matters greatly, because you don't win elections without money. We live in 2023. Let us all be grown-ups. It's more than just screaming, we have to reduce spending. You actually have to go about reducing it. It's more than just saying we need to go after Joe Biden because of this duplicitousness with his son, Hunter Biden, what he knew about the businesses. You actually have to go do it. And certainly, I favor the impeachment inquiry. I favor every part of the impeachment inquiry. I always have. And not that I think it's going to lead to actual impeachment. Don't confuse issues. I'm talking about playing chess. I'm not talking about clubbing somebody. If you have all of the data, you can go about engaging impeachment. Feel free. If you don't have all of the data, if you don't have it all, if you don't have it in a way that you feel that you can get impeachment done, the very least you should do is be able to share it with America and let them decide, because there's a difference between what happens with impeachment and then the possible removal in the Senate and the court of public opinion regarding an election. So you're saying, Tony, that you want this to sway an election. I am saying that there might be information here that should sway an election. Information about the duplicitous nature of the Biden family and money taken. All of a sudden, brother of Joe, Jim Biden, is writing checks through the wife for $40,000 for loan repayment. Stop it. I mean, in what planet does this dog hunt? In what way is this conceivable or believable? And now the new Speaker of the House has even more to contend with regarding support for Israel, whether or not there's going to be support for Ukraine. And he has given some, I don't even think it's tacit. He has said Ukraine funding is going to come. But how is it going to come? Well, that's going to be part of the conversation. This is not an easy lift. And this is about more than Mike Johnson. This is about the Republican Party and whether or not they can put all of this together in a way to help them in 2024. What is the point of this change in speaker if you're not going to be able to get victory out of it? Because you really didn't like Kevin McCarthy? Allow me to be clear. I don't care who likes Kevin McCarthy or not. It's meaningless. It's meaningless because I'm not an emotional guy. I'm a rational guy. I think you're rational. It is meaningless to whether or not you liked him. What matters is effectiveness. You want to argue that he wasn't effective? Okay, he's not there anymore. Now we're on to Mike Johnson. Now you could say to me, if Mike Johnson isn't effective, we'll replace him with somebody else. But now you're getting to the idea of showing America that Republicans are not effective, and therefore they vote in another direction. It doesn't exist in a vacuum. So what we are about to see now that Mike Johnson is in, This is incredibly important stuff because you have to show that you are effective. And this is a really important moment for the political right. The political left has many issues that need to be aggressively discussed. And if you want to argue exploited, I'm down with that. I'm cool with that. I am in for that. Like, for example, the number of Jew haters within that party, the number of radicals within that party, the support for Hamas in that party. It is obscene. And they do it now with almost like a sense of pride. They are engaged in this hate with like a sense of, that's right, we're moral and just. This right here took place at the University of Pennsylvania. Listen to this.
A friend from back home recently reminded me of something which I would like to share with all of you. Do you guys remember the photo of the kids and men laughing and smiling as they sat on top of the Israeli military jeep captured by our freedom fighters?
Yes!
Do you remember that picture?
Yes!
How about the photos of the bulldozer breaking through the deadly border? Do you remember that picture?
Yes!
And the several other joyful and powerful images which came from the glorious October 7th?
Yes!
I want you to picture those in your mind. I want you all to remember how you felt when you saw those images and heard the news. I remember feeling so empowered and happy, so confident that victory was near and so tangible. I want all of you to hold that feeling in your hearts. Never let go of it. Channel it through every action you take. Bring it to the streets.
Yes!
Go down to the streets every day and don't ever let them feel that you quietly accept this genocide.
Woo!
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
Free, free Palestine!
From the river to the sea!
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 Palestine will be free!
Palestine will be free!
Palestine will be free!
Palestine!
I mean, that's University of Pennsylvania? I'm supposed to send my kid there? There's no shame in supporting Hamas terrorists. And there's no difference in this student, this grown woman chanting for death to Jews. What else do you think from the river to the sea means? We've been over this many, many times, but you understand Jordan River, Mediterranean Sea, it's a genocide call. And they do it with joy. There's no difference between her and what Rashida Tlaib is doing. You lie about Israel attacking a hospital? Well, that is, to me, aid and comfort to the enemy. But we don't get censure of Rashida Tlaib for some unknown, ungodly reason that makes no sense whatsoever. I'll get to that. I'll get to that in a bit. How Republicans are going to deal with this is a big subject and a big story, and one that we're going to dig into, expecting Congresswoman Cammack any second. I will bring that to you live. This is Tony Katz Today. So here's what's going on. My radio station is now in commercial. I'm waiting on the Congresswoman. I am very clear about a couple things. And one of those things, most definitely, is that it has to be understood that what is happening in this context of the Israel-Hamas conversation, this war that Hamas started because they're a terrorist organization, they want Jews dead, that this isn't just about Jews, has to be understood from the word go. It isn't just about Jews. It is about all of us. And yes, it's about the United States, starting with a subject that has completely disappeared from people's mindsets. We have hostages there. Hamas took Americans hostage. And then there are Americans in Gaza. They could be there for a multiplicity of reasons. It's not like they just went on vacation to Gaza. They could be in non-governmental organizations. They could be working there from other entities. There could be church groups there who go to Gaza. Could be a series of reasons. In some cases, from the IDF, the Israeli Defense Forces, we learned that it's like 240 Americans who are there. There have been other conversations where it's up to 500 Americans who are there. And I am a little bothered that we don't have more of an exact number, or at least closer to between 240 and 500 seems like a pretty big spread. But we don't even discuss this. We have the bigotry of Tlaib and Omar and Andre Carson of Indianapolis and Jamal Bowman of New York and Representative Ocasio-Cortez. We have this bigotry and no conversation of getting Americans back. They don't even use that conversation when they talk about the idea of humanitarian pause. All they do is talk about ceasefire. By the way, humanitarian pause is ceasefire. They're great at the wordplay. Super awesome at the wordplay. But no rational person thinks that this makes sense, and I'm happy to see that Israel isn't paying attention to it at all. They shouldn't be paying attention to it at all. It's madness. It's disgusting. And all it does is show support for Hamas. Israel stops and Hamas gets stronger, has an opportunity to hide more people, do more damage. And I'm very happy to see Israel not pay any attention to that at all and keep moving forward, because that is the right course. Israel is learning who their friends are, and there aren't many friends. This much is obvious. We know that there aren't many friends out there. Israel has serious issues ahead of it. And one of those, of course, is knowing where their friends are. And part of that comes back to us when I talk about Israel and the Hamas conversation, not just being about Jews. It is about us, the totality of Americans who recognize there is, in the Hebrew, the Yetzer Tov and the Yetzer Hara, the good and the evil. There's a right and a wrong. And it's up to us to be able to win elections to get there. This all goes back to the conversation regarding the Republican Party. Whether or not the Republican Party is up to the task. This leads to the conversation about the new speaker. The new speaker being Mike Johnson and whether or not he's ready for it. Now, Representative Cammack out of Florida, in my dealings with her, it seems to me that she is up for absolutely positively everything. I have never come to a moment where Representative Cammack is not 100% ready for the fight. Tony Katz, good to be with you. Joining me on radio, and you can watch the video over at rumble.com/Tony Katz. Congresswoman Kat Cammack joins me right now. It's good to be with you. I know you were filing some bills on the House floor, but I want to, before getting into some of the Israel conversation that exists, so much of this is about whether or not Representative Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House, is up to the task of not only helping Republicans win, but fighting back against some real insanity we're seeing on the political left. And the political left has decided to tell me that he is the biggest Christo-fascist who has ever lived in the history of Congresswoman. So is Mike Johnson up for this?
Oh, well, Tony, it's always a pleasure. But to answer your question as concisely as possible, hell yeah, he is. It is so funny how ultra-liberal left media came out against him, and that's how we knew we were onto something. Just, I mean, every element of his life, his faith, his family, the fact that he is not a media hound dog, running to a camera at every waking moment. They think something's wrong with him. It really is quite incredible. But there's one thing that you will hear about Mike Johnson from any member, Republican, Democrat, reporter, staffer, doesn't matter. They will tell you that he's one of the nicest people on Capitol Hill. And it's just a kindness that he has in dealing with people that is very warm and endearing, not really found up here on Capitol Hill. And it's also disarming. And to that end, you have somebody who's very thoughtful, strategic, a constitutional conservative. You combine that with that warm type of, Southern hospitality. He's from Louisiana. and it can be quite effective. And I think you're going to see Mike Johnson jamming the Senate, jamming the White House, because he's a principled conservative, but he's also very disarming in that way that he's going to be effective in ways that we haven't seen before. So he's up to the task. He's up for the fight. Well,
the pushback is already beginning on this $14.5 billion where he wants to take the money out of IRS funding and give that to Israel. This was one of your colleagues, Democrat from New York, Dan Goldman, responding to that.
Well, not the way that the Republicans are doing it, that's for sure. They are trying for the first time ever to condition emergency aid to Israel, and in fact to any country that we provide emergency aid to, on some sort of other offset or requirement. And in this case, and I thought Joe put it so well the other day, it's to protect billionaires. And I know for Republicans, this may seem like a political game, but I can tell you for those of us who are Jewish in America and around the world, this is no game. This is an existential fight for the existence of Israel. And
it is odd to me, myself being Jewish, I don't think you have to be Jewish to think it odd, Representative Cammack, that Dan Goldman thinks that Speaker Johnson is playing a game, but it is his party that is lousy with members who are clearly, in my view, supporting Hamas. Yeah. This is exactly the fight that he's up against, Speaker Johnson is. How should he respond?
Well, Representative from New York there, bless his heart. I served with him on weaponization, and in the South, that's what we would say, bless his heart. It's interesting that the minute that we find a pay for that goes against the political agenda of the left, they have to stomp and scream and make it about them. And in fact, when you look at what the 87,000 IRS agents that cost $81 billion, of which we are using a portion of the money to actually pay for the aid to Israel, that right there tells you that they're more interested in making sure that the middle class and working class are getting audited at every turn, because that's what those 87,000 IRS agents were designed to do. We know that from the commissioner of the IRS. He even said it in a memo that that's what those people were designed to do. And then, of course, we have the element of the Hamas caucus. You have people who are unapologetically pro-Hamas, and they are saying without apology, without remorse, that they think that Israel should be wiped off the face of the earth. They're out on the street chanting from the river to the sea. And what does he have to say about that? Nothing. So it's pretty telling about where we are at here in Congress. We make apologies for standing with Israel, and we're going to do it in a smart way that is, again, an America First policy, not putting the burden on the American taxpayer, but offsetting it with ridiculous programs that should have been in the first place.
Is it about standing with Israel in the House right now, or is it maybe more of a, what is it that this administration is doing? This was a tweet, a post on X, put out by the Vice President, Kamala Harris. Taking on hate is a national priority. Today, POTUS and I are announcing the country's first national strategy to counter Islamophobia. This action is the latest step forward in our work to combat a surge of hate in America. The hate, if you will, if you believe in hate crimes and follow the statistics regarding Muslims in America, is nothing compared to what is being dealt with by Jews in the United States. So it brings the question of, where is this administration focus? Is this something that Republicans in the House should be talking about?
Well, and I actually have to run and vote really fast so I don't miss the vote. Oh, I'm going to miss this vote is what I'm being told. So I have to run. But to the point that you were just making, Tony, 50% of hate crimes in this country are against the Jewish people. So that tells you everything that you need to know. Maybe the White House should be focusing on anti-Semitism rather than Islamophobia.
Representative Cammack, I'm glad you had a couple of minutes. Go vote. Go do the thing. Appreciate you. The focus that is missing is where we should be. When I asked the question about whether the speaker is up to the job, these are the things. It is a much greater conversation than just a pet project. To be up to being Speaker of the House in today's America is about being able to fight. And fights include very pointed, direct, focused conversations For example, about the bigotry of this White House. I had a conversation yesterday. I'm having a cigar. I have cigars often. This is not shocking to anybody who has ever met me. And I already had one today, right? And they were discussing how they were pleased with Joe Biden more than they thought they would be regarding his statements and his stance regarding Israel. Now, if you go and take a look at Joe Biden's statement there a few days afterwards, because there was no really, there was a statement, there was no real focus. It was probably the strongest thing I've ever heard the man say, certainly as president. But then you take a look at his staff, and you take a look at how Karine Jean-Pierre, when asked about anti-Semitism, pivoted to Islamophobia. And then you take a look at the party, Tlaib, Omar, Ocasio-Cortez, Carson, Bowman, Presley, Jayapal. Pramila Jayapal from Washington State, who heads up the Progressive Caucus in the House, warned Biden, you better be careful, you're going to lose Muslim votes. Why is this the concern? Are you not worried about losing Jewish votes? Which we should get into a whole conversation about why Jews vote for liberals and how anybody can think that this Democratic Party has got your best interest at heart, whether you're Jewish or not, is beyond comprehension. Trump is a mean guy who did some bad things, still better than Joe Biden, at least on this subject, without question. But go back to what I'm saying here. Biden gives this strong statement, but where is the backup? And the answer is there is none. His party is lousy with Jew haters, not anti-Semites, Jew haters. His party is lousy with people who support Hamas. And now it's this, the country's first national strategy to counter Islamophobia. How is this the focus? Should we start by addressing the fact that Islamophobia is a nonsense terminology that has been bandied about since September 11th and to any extent has not come to fruition? Has never manifested itself the way it has on the campus of Cornell University, Harvard University, Stanford University, University of Pennsylvania, Columbia University. Shall I go on? Because we could do more than the Ivies. If there was an event on an Ivy League campus talking about Muslims like they're talking about Jews, CNN would hyperventilate and die on the spot. They wouldn't know what to do with themselves. MSNBC would be calling for these colleges to be razed and the earth salted. You know it, and I know it. So you could argue that Joe Biden gave a strong speech, but you can't argue that it actually provided any value. You can't argue that he believed it. You can't argue that the party isn't an anti-Semitic, Jew-hating party. And it isn't because I say so. It's because they say so. They do so. They show you so. Time and again and again and again and again and in every single way. And their supporters on these college campuses and the professors who build up these kids to be such Jew haters, every single step of the way, they're showing you. And if the Republican Party does not act upon this, expose, share their disgust, and I'm not talking about some little talking point on cable news, right to their faces, interrupt them when they're on CNN, interrupt them when they're on MSNBC. Your Jew hate is disgusting. Shame on you. And then walk off. You got to fight like they do. Because this isn't just about Jews. If this is what they'll do on this, they will feel emboldened to do it on others. We're watching a worldwide pogrom against Jews. And if we let it go, it's only a matter of time before it is against anybody who doesn't agree with their progressive so-called morality. I'm Tony Katz, And I can't thank you guys enough for being here and being a part of what it is that we're doing. I'm sorry, Representative Cammack had to go vote, but sometimes it happens. Just grab them as you can. And of course, my thanks to you and my thanks to Americans for Prosperity, AmericansForProsperity.org, economic liberty, free speech. That's what it's all about. That's why I work with them. I like that kind of stuff. And listen to the show. It's at WIBC.com, WGCL, WMUN. We're building all over Indiana and soon all over the country. Appreciate you guys. Catch you next time.